How did one of the richest countries in the world, home to the largest oil reserves on the planet, become the stage for one of the most severe humanitarian crises of the 21st century? Venezuela's history is a roller coaster of black gold, revolutionary dreams, authoritarianism, and political deadlocks. To understand what is happening today, we need to take a step back in time: the birth and the oil wealth. It all begins with the liberation ideals of Simón Bolívar, the liberator, who in the 19th century dreamed of a united Latin America. However, Venezuela's destiny changed drastically in 1914, when oil was discovered on a massive scale. Within a few years, the country shifted from an agricultural economy based on coffee and cocoa to an energy-exporting powerhouse. For much of the 20th century, while the rest of Latin America faced violent military dictatorships and instability, Venezuela seemed like an island of prosperity. In 1958, after the fall of dictator Marcos Pérez Jiménez, the main political parties signed the Punto Fijo pact. The problem? This system eventually created a political elite disconnected from the people, leading to corruption and deep inequality. In the 80s and 90s, oil prices fell and the Venezuelan economy shuddered. In 1992, a young and charismatic lieutenant colonel named Hugo Chávez led a failed coup d'état. He was imprisoned, but his image as a vigilante for the poor was etched into the public's mind. In 1998, elected by popular vote, Chávez took office promising a Bolivarian Revolution and 21st century socialism. He changed the constitution, renamed the country the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, and, taking advantage of a new historic peak in oil prices, invested billions in social programs known as misiones. Poverty fell, but institutions were slowly hollowed out. Chávez concentrated power, silenced critical TV stations, and nationalized hundreds of private companies. In 2013, Chávez's death from cancer marked the end of an era. He left Nicolás Maduro, a former bus driver and union leader, as his successor. But Maduro lacked Chávez's charisma and had the misfortune of taking office exactly when global oil prices plummeted. Without oil money to sustain subsidies and with national production crippled by a lack of investment, the economy went into a tailspin. The government's response to popular discontent was to tighten its grip. Between 2014 and 2017, Venezuela saw massive protests that ended in violence and death. Maduro created a parallel constitutional assembly to strip power from the parliament, which was then controlled by the opposition. In the eyes of much of the world, Venezuelan democracy had effectively turned into a dictatorship. The practical result was hyperinflation, one of the highest in modern history. The currency lost its value, and there were severe shortages of food, medicine, and electricity. This triggered an unprecedented exodus. More than 7 million Venezuelans fled the country, spreading across Latin America and the world. In 2019, the world watched a bizarre standoff. Congressman Juan Guaidó declared himself interim president, gaining recognition from dozens of countries. However, Maduro maintained control of the armed forces and the state's revenue sources, remaining in the Miraflores palace. Recently, the 2024 elections brought new allegations of fraud and repression, showing that the country is still far from a peaceful solution. The story of Venezuela is a warning about how a reliance on a single resource and the erosion of democratic institutions can destroy a prosperous nation. The country's future remains one of the greatest diplomatic challenges in the Americas.